This week I'm joined by François Bonnet to discuss his book After Death, alongside discussions on mortality, the hyperpresent, and communication. I'd like to say a big thank you to all my paid patrons and subscribers for making all of this work possible, and if you would like to support Hermitix or become part of the community, please find links in the description below. Enjoy. Okay, so François Bonnet, thanks for joining us on Hermitix podcast.
Thank you.
We are going to be discussing your sort of short but extremely compact and precise book, After Death, which is... Now I've got to try and find a way to succinctly describe it, which is about notions of the present in relation to limitation, mortality, and death. You bring in... I think it really centers around this notion of the hyperpresent, which you bring in. I think that's the important thing which sort of ties it all together. This idea that nothing's happening anymore, the complete disconnect and, depersonalization that everyone has, and that inherent idea that there's no sort of substantial connection to anything from anyone. So before we sort of jump in with that, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how this book came about. And whether or not I've sort of correctly described it.
Yeah, for the description, it's I think there's different way of entering the to enter the book, and of course the way you describe is one major way of entering the book. Another way is to start from this distinction I try to do between the finite being and projected being, but it's something. It's another. It's totally linked together, but it's another way to enter the book. Well, who am I? I'm a musician. I mean that my main occupation is to be the director of INAGRM, which is a musical research center based in Paris, France, which is the birthplace, if we can say that, of musique concrète. It's been founded in 1958, so it's an old institution. And basically my work is always switching between music, practice, art, and theory. And my philosophical journey started as a writer around this idea of theory around sounds. My first book, which was my PhD thesis, is called The Order of Sounds. It's been translated and published as well on Urbanomic. And this is a starting point of my theoretical journey. And very shortly, how we get from this theory about sounds and art and to this after death, it's a very continuous lineage for me. I wrote this book, The Order of Sounds, in 2010, I think. Been published in 12 and translated later. And it's already about this intrication of language, concept, abstractions, and the impossibility of feeling, of listening properly, in a way, roughly. Then in between, there's a book called The Infra World, which is very linked to that as well, this idea of sensations and feelings that can't be grasped or objectivized through language. And it's a short book, kind of drifting around this twilight world between the clear sensation and the sensation that remains hidden in a way. And all this reflection basically revolves around the same questioning about how do we feel, how do we experience life, how language at the same time support this experience of being alive and help sharing, and at the same time create boundaries, impeach us to have a direct feelings through things. very roughly said. And after this was colliding with another aspect of the experience of possible death and the possibility for us of feeling things in a duration in this age where duration is abolished in a way. Maybe I don't know if I'm clear enough. Mm-hmm. You tell me.
Yeah, definitely. So there is a clear link there between the idea of sound and duration. Do you think then that this idea that we're not listening correctly is inherently linked to this idea that we don't have the duration to do so?
No, actually, I think something I'd like to add for people who listen to what we're to talk is yeah, it's hard. It's not so easy for me to put the right words all the time in English. So I must amend sometimes. So I don't think there's a correct way of listening and a non-correct way of listening. In my first book, there were like basically different strategies that to show how listening is under influence of preconceptualized ideas or even power of speech, or different stakes as authority, power. And but then to come back to your observation, I could say maybe that I'm interested in sound and music, maybe because they deal with duration, and maybe because they require an experience in time. Probably that's something that can link this reflection together, that tied this reflection together. I'm always seeking for experiencing things, and I think duration helps, and the heart of sound and music are a very privileged dimension, if I can say, to experience that.
Okay. I'm sure sound will probably come back in later on when we get into the sort of the content of after death. But before we jump too far forward, I do have to ask you the Hermitix question. You can place 3 thinkers, living or dead, into a room and listen in on the conversation. Who do you pick?
Yeah. So I tried to think about that, tried to fictionalize that and fantasize that, and I came short with any idea, any envy, any desire. And I was, what is it so difficult? Because it's a funny question. It could be like a nice virtual experience. And what I came up with is I would probably be disappointed by these meetings, and I really my relationship to theory is really channeled through books, and because I think it's at the moment the philosopher, theoretian, novelist writes it down. It's really, where is it now? I was thinking about this question, and it reminded me I don't know if you read Nietzsche's Later in Italy, just in Torino, just before his collapse. And of course, Nietzsche's collapse in Torino is something significant and massive in contemporary philosophy. In a way, it's a stone. But if you read the letters he wrote to friends, he's just talking about the food he has, his health, and how happy he is because a waiter recognized him, and very tribal things, and which makes me very human in a way. But so yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any real good answer for that. I didn't find any. Anyway, sorry.
That's fine. That's completely okay. It's the first person to not put anyone in the room, which it makes sense. Like my picks when I think about this question, which I do quite a lot, is always people who we understand as good conversationalists. For the same reason as you, is I wouldn't want to put someone huge in there and they just sort of like, in real life, they're not as articulate as their books. So you just come away thinking you'd be disappointed. So I think that's a good answer. You know, read Shakespeare, don't talk to him. He probably wouldn't be that interesting in real life.
No, and it's the same with what we're doing now. I think if people got interest with with our exchange, it's good. But when you write a book, you're super sharp on your topic. You're really fed with it, and after you move on, and sometimes the time is published and then translated, and then you have to talk about it. It's 2 years, and it's a good exercise because you see how it resonates with what you've done and where you are now. But at the same time, you're a bit more brittle with the content in a way.
Okay. So unfortunately, we do need to dive into the book. Now we have like an empty room, which maybe that'll come back in some way. This idea of, so you're sort of firmly in the camp of like leave a text be, like a text is its own thing and shouldn't really be tampered with in this way.
I think it really depends of how people work. To me, I like book as books because they remain. You can't undo them, and people can really make them their own. And sometimes I have very interesting reaction by some people who read it, and I think I didn't think about, and I wouldn't agree. But I like the idea that you make it your own. If it's genuine, of course, yeah, I'm not okay if people fabricate things by just editing things and make me like a parrot saying things I don't want to say. But if people in their own path, in their own research, in their own journey, find things I might disagree, but are still something fertile, I think it's okay. And yeah.
Okay. So this is a huge question for your book. What's happened to the present? What is the present that we're within? What's happened to it in the sense that it's changed? What did it used to be, and what is it we are within now?
Yeah. My observation is nothing new. Maybe the articulation and the explanation I offer are a bit more singular, but the observation is pretty common. It's with the multiplication of communication exchanges and the acceleration of the data exchanges and the facility of communication, the duration of items, I don't know what to say, of the possibility of events to unfold gets shorter and shorter. And we are more and more solicited in a more fragmented way, and we have to answer and acknowledge things faster and faster. And yeah, that's where it is. But my singular view on that is that it's not the acceleration for the sake of it. It's not like a hyper modernity. It's not acceleration in the cinetic way. On the contrary, it's to me, it's acceleration in order to achieve a static state, which would be the hyper-present, which is always present, which abolished in a way the possibility of unfolding in the past and the future. And very roughly, again, for people who listen to it, it's more articulated in the book. But basically, why is that? My guess is like a disconnection with being alive as a human being with a lifespan which is determined, and being in the world as a communicational beast, dreaming of eternity. And the fantasy of being eternal and being always there is very seductive, of course, because nobody wants to. Most of people don't want to die in a way, or are afraid to die, and then it's being hypnotized in an everlasting present, it's a very efficient way of not dealing with this fear of death. And what I say in the book, why it's called after death, it's because it's not death as it is. It's even more the finite being limited in time and in space. And so that's how I see the present now. Fiction designed to put people in stasis.
So that's how you define the hyperpresent, is this almost like a bee has to flap its wings super, super fast to stay still?
Yeah, we can get this metaphor of sound again. When you what's the frequency? The frequency, it's the number of variation around a static point, which is oscillation, the number of oscillation in a second. If it's slow, you can hear a bit. If it gets faster and faster, you don't have this rhythmic aspect anymore. It becomes a sine wave. And because it's so close, well, it's like cinema. The cinema, it's 24 images per second, 24 fixed. But because of Raytheonian inertia, you see a moving thing, you see a continuity, because it's too fast. And that's the idea of being kind of saturated with events in order to achieve a stasis, in a way.
To stay with that cinema metaphor, if we were able to sort of stay on one frame and view it, do you think we'd learn anything from that, or do you think we'd just feel like we were completely behind?
I beg your pardon? I didn't get...
If we could, with that cinema metaphor, with the frames, 24 frames, if we could stay on one frame and, take our time with it, understand it, do you think we'd learn anything from that, or do you think we'd just feel like we were behind?
Yeah, maybe it's the weakness of the metaphor, maybe at one point. But I definitely, what can I answer? I definitely think that we don't have enough time for things to unfold right now. And or maybe not right now, because it's another thing, but let's say last year we didn't really have time to have things unfold. And maybe it's changing now a bit.
Okay. So that will never catch up to us. All that stuff that doesn't have the time to unfold but is still there. Still, that we understand that there's something that we've missed, or there's something that we haven't had the time to grasp.
Maybe we did. Maybe it goes in this limbo of what I've called the Infra World, of the things that you don't really acknowledge, and but still have an effect on you. But still, what we lose is the possibility of really investigating in that in a conscious way. So, it's not like all black or white, but basically, I think I definitely have less time to investigate a book than I used to. Because I think it's really like a key moment in the book. I say we don't really use the word internet anymore, and we don't say, "Oh, I'm connecting to the internet." There's something we say in France. I don't know if you say in English, but you say, "Oh, je vais me connecter à internet. I'm going to connect to internet." You never say that anymore. 15 years ago, we were saying that because it was something active. You were connecting to shitty modem, and you were on the internet. No, people don't. I think kids never say that. They're always connected, Mm-hmm. So there have been like a difference between an active way to travel to a cyberspace, and now being always in these two worlds, of this world of contingencies and biorhythm with this parallel world of cyberspace, and sometimes it's colliding. I give an example in the book about an example I think it's very striking about young, not so young, but Taiwan Taiwanese guy who just died. It's something that happens regularly. People who died in cyber cafe, just being absorbed by the network, video games or whatever, and don't moving from the chair for 30 hours. And if you don't move from your chair for 30 hours, your blood flow doesn't work. So blood is you're getting stones in your blood and stuff, and you die. And it's I think it's striking to see how these tools, because it's tools, are so powerful that it makes you forget yourself. Like in the real biological reality, you forget yourself. You forget to sleep. You forget to eat. You forget to drink. You forget to move, and you die. And it's of course it's most significant or most spectacular way. But I think for everyone on a small doses, this is kind of the same reality is operating.
So do you think there's we're in a network which is almost too communicative? Like we shouldn't have this much communication constantly?
I think it's technology is not evil or right per se. I think it's more about the narrative and the ideology that's been. But it's really fascinating and very complex question. Where did this journey to escape death started? And religion maybe is just designed for that first. Just say, oh, there's a beyond, don't worry. It's going to be okay after the beyond of the code. Everything is in order, don't worry. Live your life, it's going to be better later. So it's from the ages that you want to conjure your finite being. And I think maybe we just have a too powerful tool with too little inside strength to deal with it properly. So I don't think that like an evil force with a master plan. I don't think that the technology is per se evil. I think we just are children with this technology, and children afraid of the dark. And if exactly like if we were children afraid of the dark and with a super efficient lighting system and we're using all the time, so maybe we should learn to dim a bit. But it's and maybe I don't know because it's something maybe we should talk later. But maybe pandemic we're experiencing now. I'm not sure. I'm not prophesying anything, but maybe the pandemic showed us that reality is real and that things requires times, and sometimes system is stuck. And I don't know what's going to come out of it. Probably we will just forget as soon as we got it and we say, it's done. Let's forget it. Probably what's going to happen. But now in this very moment of experience, when people ask me, I always make this example because I lived it, and it's not something very incredible. Lots of millions of people lived it. But when for the first lockdown, I was lucky enough to be on an island. And in France, we have this 1 kilometer zone we could move on. And it was springtime on this island, I know very well, but I never spent 2 months and a half doing the same road all the time and just looking at the plant grow and the lights changed. I don't think there's a truth there that, the genuine relationship to the soil and the ground. I don't fantasize that, but it was another experience I never done. Being able to really see day by day the change of things, and it gave me a kind of a profound knowledge of things. I've discovered plants I didn't know they exist. Understood a bit better the relationship with tides, and and clouds. I'm not an expert, but it gave me something. And I know that's the way we deal with time, especially now we're traveling a lot. We wouldn't allow me that. And I don't think I don't say we should do that all the time, but the striking thing is like the simpler things you didn't experience, and I'm 40. That's just something that struck me in a way.
So, do you mind if I ask, are you religious?
No.
Not at all, nothing?
No. No, I even didn't get religious education.
Okay. So do you...
neither was I in a family against religion. Mm-hmm. I was really this classical end of Catholicism grasp on people, and people just didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you were talking about us, like if we had a mass system of lighting, we were afraid of the dark, we'd constantly be trying to make sure it's still on, so we're always in the light. And this seems to be the internet. Do you know, not to be too cliche, but do you think that us being disconnected would be like another death of God for us? Because we're no longer seen. If we're not online, we don't exist because we're not seen anymore.
I'm not sure I get your question. I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
So we're constantly online. We're always online. We no longer like even decide that. We're just a priori. We're online. We're connected. Do you think that the notion of being disconnected from like the global network is to us, sort of a death of a religion? We're no longer seen by this greater thing.
I wouldn't go that far, and it might change for the new generation who always been living like that. Maybe it would be a big shock being disconnected. I don't know. I still have the hope that we can adapt, and I think we could adapt quite easily to everything. It's more that, and I don't. Again, I don't think this global communication is evil. It can convey great things and shared experience and can provide great things. I just think it's something is unbalanced now, and this unbalanced state can produce toxicity and can remove an aspect of being alive. When I give this example of being able to observe the change of nature in the island, I don't romanticize that. I think, that's a way of being alive. That's a really genuine way. It's just that it's something else. Your body adapts. The rhythm is different. You experience things, and the thing basically, if I want to promote something, is the diversity of experience as a human being, and the problematic I see in being over solicited by this network is that we tend to shut down one dimension of being alive.
Okay. So from this dimension, from this present that we're within, I mean, you actually seem quite hopeful in person, which your book didn't come across as too hopeful. Maybe I've got maybe I read it sort of incorrectly there. Do you think there's a possibility of us like retrieving a future, or even on the inverse of that, retrieving as well a connection to the past? Do you think these things can become their own thing which you can actually grasp towards, or is that a possibility?
As I said, with the pandemic, we saw that things are fragile and things can be shut down. I don't honestly, but I have no idea. I'm terrible at grasping the possibilities as more like in a geopolitical way. I think it's possible, and in a way, in philosophical way, I think it will happen, because mankind is. I don't see mankind evolves without crisis. if not even on long term. And crisis will be will reshuffle things. So it's and it's not lost completely. It's there. It's just that we tend to forget more and more. But I think there's like there might be tipping point. That's maybe that's my hopeful aspect. But for example, very silly example, but yesterday we saw what happened in USA in Congress, and for 4 years of Trump, you would say, oh, there's no limits. It's always go and there's no bottom, and it's always gone and gone, and now you might a slight things of okay, that rock bottom, that's you can't go lower, and now it's shifting, and the hopeful thing is okay, it's going to be a lesson for democracy. It's like okay, you can't go further, because then you can see how quickly it can really get bad, and it was close. And so okay, to make it short, maybe based on trial and errors, maybe at one point there would be a readjustment of what we can do and how we use the tools. This metaphor of children, maybe we need time to learn how to use them properly and not being overwhelmed by them. But it's at the same time, that's what I brought as well in the book. It's shaping people, and a younger generation maybe doesn't know how to live without, and doesn't see the point living without, or it's not even without, it's just doesn't see the point not being synced all the time. And I don't know, I have no clue.
So do you think this hyper-present that you write about has brought with it a new relationship that we have with death, or do you think that's the relationship we've always had with death in a new form? You know, we don't really want to know about death.
It's a bit of both. Why? It's a silly answer, but why a bit of both? I don't think we always had the same relationship to death. Maybe we have the same narratives to conjure the idea of death, but at the same time, people were dying much younger. Death was much more visible, was a common thing. Now it's almost invisible. Nothing new when I'm not. It's something obvious. Everybody can experience that. Old people don't live in the same houses than family, as it was the case 100 years ago. You don't really see dead people. You see processed dead people, or very glimpse of dead people before being put in a coffin. Of course, I mean, in our Western world, of course, it's not the same in everywhere. And there's war, where it's like poverty and starvation. Of course, people still experience it. So it's not. But in our post-industrial, over-communicational world, the experience of being not only death, but illness, weaknesses, all this kind of thing have to be processed in order to be acceptable, made acceptable in a way. But being processed means being a bit in an abstract world of representation, not so much a world of direct encounters. I don't know.
So you think perhaps for the modern world, death is sort of seen as something that shouldn't be. Sort of, it has to be dressed up. It's almost always a mistake.
I wouldn't put it like that, because I don't think there's like even a moral view on that. Like, oh, it's wrong. It should. It's even non-acknowledged. It's really something that people refuse to think about. And I think this idea of being saturated is a relief, because you don't have time to think about that. And of course it happens in the lifespan of everyone, because you get sick, you get very real sick, and you die. So at one point you do. The thing is, this is unbalanced between the finite being, which always comes back to you because you're a finite being, and the projected being. And I think the narrative of society is mostly constructed now towards this eternal state, and which is convenient for so many ways as well. But you can really see that with the politics of dealing with a pandemic, where the number one goal is really to save everyone. And it's I don't have a real defined opinion with that, but you save people, lots of people actually. I don't know. It's very tricky, but the unanimity of the first word is like saving everyone is to me is significant of how unacceptable death is, really. And it raises a lot of questions. It's a tricky and touchy subject, so I don't know. Okay. But yeah, it's
okay. There's moving on from death. Then there's sort of one other big theme in After Death, which I sort of really enjoyed, and that other people who've read the book that I chat to about it also enjoyed, which is this, I mentioned it at the beginning, this passing feeling that you have. Obviously, we've spoken about this disconnect, this inability to sort of grasp whatever's going on because it's moving so fast. So really, the overarching question here is, we understand that there's this possibility of like we could have a deeper feeling towards the things we interact with. It's there, the possibility of it is there, but we don't. So why is it, do you think, that we no longer really feel in any deep way? We just don't feel anything anymore. We sort of kept in this neutral zone that just keeps flying past. Perhaps you've already touched on this. Perhaps it is, it's all tied in together.
It is, but to me, it's in the book. It's I've done this articulation with forgetting and amnesia and anesthesia, and I think they really work together. And it's an habit we tend to get to put more and more. Okay, let's have another stupid images. An example. Let's go on like where you've got this cliche of teenagers that bored of everything. They don't give a damn of everything. I'm not a parent, but you get this cliche of trying to bring your teenagers to the seashore and say, "Oh, look, it's beautiful." Yeah, I don't care. You're trying to make them do things, and they don't really give a damn. And you don't understand why. I think, to me, teenagers are in this phase of their life where the most important thing is constructing themselves as a person and being acknowledged as a person through communication and exchanges. And that's what's at stakes when they're teenager. That's the building them as adult. Love at first starts. They're starting to build their own social environment and building them as a person. And that's really what it's about. So going to see something they don't really care. It's lost time because they're under construction, and it's imperious needs to be doing that. I think maybe, again, bad example, but society has been a teenage society now, and where everybody is always trying to construct an individuality and a person in an everlasting present, and without really acknowledging the surrounding worlds. Again, yesterday we saw like people invade the Capitol, and of course people talk about insurrection and everything, and it was very significant because it never happened. But then what we got inside, like people with a hat, without shirts, just sitting, people taking selfies. They had no clue. And it was just like this kind of childish thing that I don't agree with that. And because I don't agree with that, my freedom is at stake. So they kind of building a weird hybrid narrative where all the narrative which tied together a society about big ideas are just used as simple egoistic tool to express yourself and exist. And that's in a way a regression. I think that people are childish because they don't are really like. It's not true that I didn't see people with like a real constructed political agenda going to that. But it was like, sorry, but morons just hanging around, which is it's not to say it's okay or it's very serious, and it was something very serious, but they were not at the height of the seriousness of the event. They were, and because I think this motivation is really like this distortion of this experience of being alive as an individual and the experience of being projected in a world of science. And because of this distortion, you've got like just people, because they can't really accept or deal with the narrative or the absence of narrative of being alive, just twist it and project everything in the world of science and the big important idea of, for example, of freedom, which is something shared by a lot of people. Most of people want to be free and wants to be, and freedom means that you have to put you may put things together or find strategies to allow that. And its freedom is always a space between others, become just a claim for oneself as a motto, as a flag, and doesn't mean anything else. That I want to do whatever I want, and in a very childish way. So I don't know. Maybe I'm drifting out. But where were we? Sorry.
So yeah, the idea of why we don't feel anything.
Sorry. So yeah.
No, I think you have answered that question with this idea of a teenage mindset is that you're just focused on building yourself up as opposed to like stopping and actually having a feeling, or
and being fascinated and entangled in communicational networks all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Really like really being like a social animal.
Okay, so our sort of existence as a teenage society sort of depends on this connection, this constant communication. We have to be in communication.
Yeah. And we crave for communication, we crave for exchanges, and but it's always like, and as I put in the book, it's not about like I think it's not about exchanging informations. It's more like communication. The way the way it's done mostly. It's not, of course, we give here in this exchange big trades. Things are much more subtle, but let's the rough idea is that the communicational network is designed to share information, but now the informations most of the time are just synchronization points. When you put a like on something or heart on something, you don't really say I like, or I love what you've done. It's like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm around. I'm part of the team. I'm in the crew. And it's and you don't really. I mean, there's a lot of interesting thing. You've got like lots of interesting posts, but it's this famous example of people just start to post and then put this Latin word you use as to fill the text when you're making mock-ups of websites, and basically they just fill it with nothing, and at the end say, but I'm sure you didn't read it until the end, but you still liked it, and you've got like lots of people who like posts and they just read 10 lines. There have been studies about that, because it's what's matter is not being penetrated by a text or being changed by a speech or by an idea about someone, just being there and acknowledging that and moving somewhere else and say, I'm here as well. I think it's this kind of, if you want to go on a more philosophical ground, I think we still have to, and it was a review on my book. It's something I didn't really acknowledge in the book, but someone gave this look on that. I think it's interesting. It's this kind of schizophrenic approach, and it really of course resonates with Anti-Oedipus by Deleuze and Guattari, and especially reminded me the study they did on Nijinsky, the dancer, when Nijinsky, schizophrenic Nijinsky, say, I'm a Chinese, I'm an African. There's this wheel of being the global man, a global woman, and being everywhere all the time. And then it's plugging back to this idea of not accepting being finite, wanting to be infinite, being eternal, being and it's something that it's not new. This is really, I think, the imperial strategy that's been like kind of reduced to each individual into micro empires, and yeah, sorry, I'm getting lost as well again, but yeah, I forgot. Anyway,
that's okay. I think the idea with respect to feeling things came across, so that's okay. Is there anything you'd like to add about the book that you feel like we haven't touched on, or would you just say to people, go read the book?
No, I think it's really book is really about this articulation of being finite, being projected, putting the death or the finite far away, and taking advantage of the oral communicational technology to do that in a way. If you want to sum it up, if people didn't find our exchange clear enough, and yeah, that's it.
Okay. Is there anywhere we can find your work, but I'm assuming you sort of usually write in French. So for those who listening who read French, maybe.
Balance? What?
Whereabouts can we find your work? Do you have a blog or anything along these lines, or?
No. I just the website of my musical project, but actually I put everything on. It's called castlejaeger.com, when you can just find references and links. That's it. But books are, I mean, Urbanomic is distributed by MIT Press, so it's very easy to find. The French books as well. It's not so difficult to get to me.
Okay. Francois, that seems like a good place to finish up, unless there's anything you'd like to sort of add in.
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.